Hey there friends, Mark Crowley back with another how to draw video, and this time we're going to be looking at how to draw a face in profile. I've got three faces that I'm going to be working on. Believe it or not, these will eventually be faces over here. The first one a female face, these other two male faces. So let's not waste any time. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in on this one and see if we can't learn something about drawing a face in profile. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump in with this. Everybody has their own way of drawing a face in profile. There's so many different ways to do it, so certainly don't think of this as the only way, but just one way. I'm going to start at the bottom, which may seem strange, but one thing that I can feel sure about is in relation to the neck, the chin is coming out at almost a 90-degree angle. And one thing that I didn't really learn so much until quite recently is the distance between the neck and the end of the chin is longer than I imagined for some reason. I guess I didn't realize the distance there in relation to the neck going forward to the chin. So I don't know if I can give you a precise measurement on how that works, but just sort of focus on that when you are trying to draw a face and see if you're getting that distance right, because that can be something when you're drawing a face in profile that you're so focused on the eyes and everything else that you're not paying attention to that relationship there. Now I'm going to draw a basic sort of guideline here that's just kind of flat. I don't know if this is even going to show up on the video, but it will eventually be erased anyway. That's just kind of to get me started and figure out where things are going to be. I think the crucial thing to figure out is where the point of the nose is going to be, and I'm finding that it works out to around the bottom of the ear, maybe just a little higher. And then when you look at the chin, as you've drawn it here, so I'm going to draw a little line here that's sort of where the tip of my nose is going to go. And it comes out, if you draw just sort of a light angle here, the features in this way of drawing a female manga face are coming out almost like steps to this point out here, which is where I'm going to say the end of the nose is going to be, okay? So, let's start with the easier of the two things, because this going from the nose down through the lips and the mouth and everything is pretty complicated. This part up here is maybe a little easier to get hold of. So I'm starting making a line that's going back pretty sharply from that point. And then there's a curve that again comes back, maybe not quite as sharply as that one was pointing in that direction, and then curving up through, hopefully in a graceful way, until you create the forehead here, okay? So that line, sort of this reverse S-shaped line, is maybe a good thing that I can put in here to begin with and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and erase a little bit of this guideline stuff here, because that was just helping me find the point where the nose goes. Now we move on to the trickier stuff, getting the relationships from the nose down through the chin and the lips and so forth. The nose, the way I'm drawing it here, is not one of these super pointy noses. You'll see one of those a little bit later on. But maybe, again, a sort of a 90-degree angle here as it comes down, a sort of an L shape, a reverse L shape. And here's the really tricky stuff when you get down to drawing the mouth, the lips in profile. And you just start to develop a sense of how this stuff goes. I'd say just practice makes perfect on this kind of thing. But the lips in general are going to be a little closer to the nose than they are to the chin. And I think that, you know, that first line that I drew here as a guideline can be helpful. I don't know if every line that you make here from here on out has to actually meet that initial guideline. Maybe just come a little close to it. And let's get to the bottom lip, which the bottom lip is not as angular in profile as the top lip. It's sort of like just a curved shape right there. And then from the bottom of that curve, it pretty much comes again at like a sort of a 90-degree angle down to the chin. So I don't know how helpful that was. This kind of things, other people may have nifty little tricks on how to get all of this in just the right place. I don't know if I do. I think it's more of in my case, more of a matter of practice makes perfect, trial and error, until you get these lines where you want them to be. Okay, so this can be one of the trickiest lines of all. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way. The line of the mouth. You want a sort of a gentle, lightly closed mouth, and it's amazing how hard this can be to do without making the lips look sort of puckered. And again, I'm not a huge expert on this stuff, but it seems to me that one trick is not to have this line go back too deep into the face. It's going back maybe the distance from the front lip here to this line back here. That distance is no greater than this distance between the tip of the nose and the bottom of the nose. So keep that distance kind of short. And then one thing that I will do very lightly sometimes is just indicate a little bit of the bottom of the lower lip, but not outline the whole thing. I don't know if that's showing up too much on video. Let me try to zero in and see if I can show what I just did there with the lip. Whoops. Yeah, I don't know if my camera's powerful enough to get that zoomed in and in focus so perfectly. But that little line right there that's hooking off the bottom of the lip, you don't necessarily need to connect it all the way down in there. In fact, this is just one way of drawing a female manga face. A lot of manga faces will barely even show the lips at all. I'm choosing to do something that's a little bit closer to real human anatomy, just one of my personal preferences. But you'll see when we go over to do the male lips that I'm not defining those lips much at all. And maybe in the future I can do another profile video showing a female character in which the lips are not defined in this way. Let's go ahead and do the eyes, and this is another tricky thing. Make sure that you get the distance between this line here and the placement of the eyes. If you try to put the eyes too close to that line, it's going to look bizarre. What you're trying to do is get back a good balanced distance from that line. I think again we might be able to use this nose, this bottom of the nose distance as a good measuring stick there. And drawing an eye in profile can also be tricky. There's a million different ways to do it. Here's one. I'm making a sort of a, I guess it's an oval, like a half oval here for the actual iris. I'm making one line that's coming back here, kind of at a gentle angle. One more line that comes off the top of the eye here as to indicate the eyelid, which makes this character look very relaxed. And I'm going to go ahead and give her some eyelashes here. You can play around and come up with your own preference for how big the eyelashes is, and are going to be. I'm just going to put a light hint of the lower eyelashes, lower eyelid. I'm not going to draw the whole thing. Sometimes people will define, put something down here. I'm just going to skip it. I think I've seen some people do this, draw manga eyes in which there is no lower lid at all, and that can be kind of cool. And we're almost there. I'm gonna lightly shade this in. Placement of the eyebrow in relation to the eye, another thing that just sort of comes with time. And the eyebrow is such an important part of showing emotion that you have to be careful, real careful with the angle. This one I'm making kind of like, because her head is sort of tilted down a little bit, it's almost, this line is almost parallel, I suppose, to the line of her head, and then I'm just going to have it taper off and follow along the eye. You can see that with the eyebrow, you know, just even the very slightest little angle will make her look angry. You make it too high, she looks surprised. And again, it's all what you're going for and the degree to which you've practiced to figure out how those angles go. I think we've got maybe enough here. The nostril is something you really have to go easy on. I'm going to just drop in a very light hint of a line here. I think the lighter the better with the nostril. You just definitely don't want to overdo it. And there you go. I mean, I did all that with an erasable pencil. I'm going to go back in real quickly with my trusty Prismacolor, black Prismacolor, to put in a final line. But like I've said before, this is almost like an inking device for me. I'm coming in and just firming up these lines that are already there. Now, I don't want this video to go on and on forever, so these other two faces in profile I will do in time-lapse, and but then come back and sort of talk about how they work, you know, what it is that makes them different from one another, and particularly what makes the male profile different from the female profile. So let's go ahead and move on to the next face. Okay, we're ready to draw a male face in profile. This one is going to be a little closer to real human anatomy, but like I said, I'm going to do it all in time-lapse, and then I'll be back to tell you how I did it. All right, so you can see that we're dealing with much sharper angles on the male face. I think that may be sort of an artistic exaggeration. I think if you looked at photographs of real male faces in profile versus female faces, I'm not sure that the angularity would be quite so pronounced, but I think it's a good way of sort of cueing to the reader that we're looking at a male character rather than a female character. Notice, like I said about the lips, that with the male character's lips, it's very minimal, and you only just get one line back here. But again, maybe that same kind of distance holds true. You know, the bottom of the nose and the mouth in profile, fairly similar. Notice again the distance between this sort of section of the bridge of the nose or at the top of the brow or whatever that is. There's always that gap in there, and make sure you're preserving that. This chin, this is a pretty big chin, and I've taken a beating from my readers for making the chins kind of large in my manga series, Miki Falls. But it's based, this one in any way is based on Bleach. You know, the Ichigo has a chin, if you look at it in profile, more or less the same size as this one. So I'm going to move from this fairly accurate, you know, or at least bearing some resemblance to real human anatomy. I'm going to move from this to one that is rather more stylized. And again, I'm just going to kick it into time-lapse for the whole thing, but then come back and talk a little bit about it. All right, so this one is a little more exaggerated, and you know, this may be the kind that people like the most, who knows. But the thing that really interests me about this style of drawing a face in profile is look how you go from the chin to the nose. It's almost like one sweeping line. It's very, very subtly broken up around the lip and just dips in ever so slightly to define the bottom of the nose. You know, so unlike real human anatomy, but it works. And it's a cool look. And I should say that this is based pretty closely on a lot of the faces that you see in Full Metal Alchemist, that style of drawing a face in profile. So if you like this look, have a close look at Full Metal Alchemist. You could learn a lot more from Hiromu Arakawa than from me, I'm sure. One other interesting thing that I noticed about this is how the mouth is not, strictly speaking, in profile. The mouth is over on this side of the line, which means it's a little more like a 3/4 view. But that's just a little trick that they've come up with to, I don't know, maybe get away from that closed mouth thing that I was talking about before, that a mouth drawn strictly in profile can be quite tricky to pull off, getting those lines right. And by putting just this part of the drawing a little bit into 3/4, you can get away from that. Who knows? It's a cool technique, though, and I may find myself using it in one of my upcoming manga projects. I'm just going to go ahead and shade things in a little more before I finish this one off, and notice how I'm dropping in a little bit of a shadow underneath the chin. I've been noticing that for a long time, that most manga characters' faces do have some kind of a drop shadow beneath the chin. That seems to be something of a tradition in manga drawing. Well, I think that's probably enough for this one. Let me pull back. I'll show all three of the faces together and have some closing remarks. So there they are, all three faces, and I did want to point out that I added a little bit of a drop shadow here on the female chin. No need really to draw a big line along the jaw there. You can keep it more feminine just by adding a shadow to suggest the bottom of the jaw, and that's based in reality. If you see a person from the side, depending on how it's lit, generally there is no big line going across the face there. So I'm probably out of time for now. I want to thank everyone, as always, who has gone out and got my manga series Miki Falls. I've heard from a bunch of you. I really appreciate, especially those of you who, when you can't find it at the store, special order it. I know that's a hassle. I really do appreciate you doing that for me. And I thought I would just show you real quickly in the fourth book evidence of me doing a face in profile. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. There she is. And as you can see, the chin is just a little bit too large. Sorry about that, my friends. Hopefully, by the time of my next project, I will be able to correct that little error of judgment. Thanks so much for watching these videos. I am really honored and amazed by how many subscribers I have now, and I do read each and every one of the comments and messages you send my way, though I can't always reply. My apologies for that. But let's wind this one down with my usual promise that I will be back with another one real soon.